what makes a good story versus just a pile of good ideas. And the reason we're talking about that is because we kind of went through that assessment this week. As we talked about last week, my project was laying out the stories we have so far on cards, which was very educational in that I could see where, like, okay, this is the seeds of a plot versus this is just really a feeling, not a story. So this weekend, Peter and I worked together to take those ideas and really give them specific shape into a story. And I owe a lot of the thoughts behind this to the podcast. Oh, I don't forget their name. Script Notes. Script Notes is a great podcast, which I've been listening to. It's two screenwriters. I'm totally blanking on their name. Mason and John August. I forget his first name. Mason is the screenwriter behind Chernobyl, and John August is the guy behind. He wrote Big Fish, among other things. And they're guys they're working screenwriters. They're very active in the community. They both are very active in the WGA. So it's very like insidery business, inside baseball, inside screenwriting kind of podcast. But it is really informative. Not in that, like, Peter and I want to break into Hollywood, because we don't.
Or baseball.
But they also talk a lot about, like, the technicalities behind making a story. And they recently had an episode that answered the question, when do you know that you're ready to start writing? And thanks to them, I know that Peter and I, up to now, have been in a period of pre-writing. And we are still pre-writing, which is fine. And that pre-writing is the period of time where you're doing research, making outlines, playing with characters, playing with dialogue. But you're not actually composing a story.
Have they said, or anybody else for that matter, what is any kind of I mean, it's art, so it's whatever time is time. That doesn't really matter. But
yeah,
is there an average of, like, I mean, I imagine some people might be in that kind of development for years.
Yeah. I think it's different depending on what your original idea is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting from a book, maybe your research is a lot less, and if you're starting from a brand new idea, maybe your research is a lot more. And yeah, if you've licensed someone's life rights, you're going to do a different kind of research than if you're working from pure fiction or whatever. But they did not specify a time.
And when did we really start, like, put pen to paper? Like, was it the beginning of this year, or was it the beginning of this summer?
That's a good question. February is when we had the idea to start writing fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end of Spring Festival break, which was early March, I just remember about that time was where we kind of pivoted from we'll write fake Emily and Peter scripts that we'll play to maybe we could write a full-on script for other people.
So that was like pre-development then?
Yeah. And then from March to maybe June, I would say I was still kind of figuring out who the characters were.
Mm-hmm.
And then June, July, August, really kind of brainstorming, not plot ideas, because we didn't really have plot till last week, but more like situations that our characters might find themselves in.
So if for life planning, we've spent these near 8 years researching what our life would be like here, but then this is like, okay, let's start taking that as research and put it into making some kind of sense in our notebook. Yeah,
because a lot of these stories are taken from like stuff that's actually happened to us. And I would say part of the summertime gathering up of situations is like reflecting on situations, our experiences that might work well in this, in the miniseries as plot. And then this week, Peter and I sat down, we had our cards, we laid them out on the table, looked at like, okay, what were we trying to do here? And then what makes it into a story. And the difference here is, so your story is someone wants something, but something stands in their way, versus like they go out to the countryside, which is a story that we're working on. But now we know they go out to the countryside with the idea of moving out there, but they realize it's just fantasy. Or what's another one? Oh, yeah, just turning like the ideas we had into more of a logical progression that would develop over the course of an hour. Of like, the second episode is Patrice and David get a new job, and then we turn that into, instead of just like watching them do orientation and interview and go to a meeting and start classes, those are all things that have happened to me, but in that order is not super compelling. There's no stakes there's no tension. So we turned it into Sugar, the boss, makes a job offer, but Patrice and David think they can do better. And so then there is the tension of like, I want you to work for me, we're not sure if we want to work for you. And then by the end, they work for her. But that gives something more to build up and then knock down and then like find a level ground, which is more compelling as a plot to watch. And then by laying out all these plots, by making them all have that push-pull tension, that's what fiction is for. You don't watch anything on TV that doesn't have, I want something, but this is in my way. That's right. Like that's the smallest unit of,
even when you're watching
storytelling.
When you're watching reality TV.
Oh, especially because reality TV is so constructed and so contrived. It is like, Linda wants to date The Bachelor, but Yumi also. Right.
You can't have any kind of creative storytelling or narrative, which is why they're so popular, is because you can just walk into any scenario. That person's yelling at that person, and that one's making googly eyes at that one. Let's see what happens. And then it's just the job of the editors and the directors and the story directors to look at that and go, all right, get a shot of that guy, get a shot of that guy.
And sometimes even the producers whispering in their ears, like, can you go confront so-and-so about this?
Right. They have to actually
so it's all conflict.
Take those pieces and mash them into each other.
Yeah.
But you have to do that even in a fiction story in a way that's interesting and compelling. Otherwise, it's just a series of events that sort of ramble into each other.
Yeah, which is, I would say, what we have now is a series of events that sort of ramble into each other, and people are lovely. So now we've added more tension, more conflict, more stakes, which is more interesting and gives you something more to write to. Because I would say I was pleased, that's why I'm calling them a pile of good ideas, is because I'm pleased with what I've written so far. But it doesn't, putting it all together, there's no reason for it all to exist as one entity. Whereas now that we have these plots, there is a reason why these events exist alongside.